Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. Welcome to our legislative meeting for November 15th, 2022. We will open up with public comment for non-agenda items only. Public comment forms are in the back of the room, so if you would like to participate, please fill out a form. Up first, we have Mr. Henry Dixon of Hopkins Taekwondo. And you can come up to the podium.
Hello, everybody. My name is Henry Dixon. I'm the head of Hopkins Taekwondo in the city of York. My request is that we're in the building on 368 West Princess Street, and we're notified that we can no longer be in that building because of codes and because of the condition of the building. So my point is that if the city has anywhere else that we can go. Like I said, we've been in that building since 1990. I've been there 1992, 1993. And that's every year, nonstop, we've been in that building. So at this point, we have absolutely nowhere to go. And I'm just asking the city if they have a place for me to go to.
I know we're not supposed to comment, but is it safe to assume that this is the West Princess Street?
Yes. Yes. So that's my issue, is that I have a program and at this point have to be out the building and I have to have my equipment out by the end of December. So I'm like in a standstill here. And my class is a free class, and we've been teaching ever since 1978, somewhere around there we was teaching for free. So this group, this class, Hopkins Taekwondo, has generated a lot of people in the city to try to get the kids off the street. Our motivation is with the youth. And apparently the youth these days have nowhere to go. So our structure is to help them, mold them, and to teach them to be a better human being in the city of York. So if you can do something or give me some guidance, I would appreciate it.
When were you notified about having to exit the building?
It was brought to my attention earlier in the year that the city was going to shut the building down. A couple of years ago, we was notified that they were going to sell the building. But nobody has came to me and said anything as far as you need to be out by 6 months or you need to be out by 2 months. It was just last week that they told me I had to be out.
And were any other options, maybe like Kelly Drive or?
No option as far as putting me anywhere was brought to my attention. It was, you just got to be out the building, period. So that means that I have nothing to fall back on. no place to fall back on at this point.
Did they give any reason why in the letter why you needed to vacate the building?
Well, number one, they didn't give me a letter. Number one, they just called me last week and said that I have to be out the building ASAP. The reason is because the building is deteriorating. My numerous times of getting in contact with someone to let them know what is going on with that building went in deaf ears. Over the years, I have been, thought I was saying the right thing to the right people so they can come in and fix it. But once they knew what the condition was, they didn't want to fix it. So there was no maintenance in the building for the last, I would say, 2.5 years. So in those 2.5 years, the building was continually going downhill. 8 years ago, I brought to the city, I'm not going to name any names who I was talked to because I don't want to throw them underneath the bus, but I was telling them about the roof, I was telling them about the leaks, I was telling them about the mold starting to grow up in the gym area. So now the condition of the building for it being left non-attended to as far as maintenance has gotten conditionally bad. We use one room in the building. We closed the other half off so that we can have our classes over the last couple of years.
First of all, just thank you for your commitment over the decades to our youth in the community. Very familiar with the Prince Street Center and your program. There is administration comment at the end of the meeting, but Mayor, did you want to say anything in regards to this?
Yeah, if council would like some additional information. We had a capital needs assessment done on that building, which and this was prior to COVID, so about 2019, and right after I came into office, and the cost of the upgrades were well over $400,000. At that time, we did not have $400,000 in our budget, and raising taxes was the only option at that time to pay for any kind of improvements in that building. The building was closed actually as of April. That building was closed. So this is the first time I'm hearing that you got no notification, so I absolutely apologize for that. I was informed only maybe a month and a half ago that you were still in there, and it was a surprise to my people. According to them, it was a surprise to them that you were still in there because it had been essentially condemned back in April after the mold and the drywall incident that occurred then with the drywall peeling and everything's coming apart in there. We have not gotten an updated assessment of the costs yet, but we know that they're much higher now, probably somewhere in the $700,000 to $1 million range. We had been working with an organization with a lease option with the movement that was approved by City Council, and that option is now up. So we are once again looking for an organization that may want to take on a work to pay the lease. Basically, they improve the building, and then those funds go towards paying any kind of lease payments that they would have towards the City of York. So that is open right now. Under my administration, that building has never been for sale. So I'm not sure who told you the building was for sale, but that has not been a thing for at least the last almost 5 years.
Okay. You told me.
I told you it was for sale?
Yes, sir.
Or I told you for lease?
You told me that you were putting the building up for sale, that you wanted to sell it.
All right. I don't see how that could be the case, but if you say so, then I must have misspoken, because that building has been up for lease for at least 3 years. Those discussions have been going on. So I'm sorry if there was some kind of miscommunication there, but that building has not been for sale.
We had a meeting in your office.
Yeah, I remember the meeting, and I don't even as the time of that meeting, there was nothing, from our side, we were not selling the building. I'm sorry if that was some kind of miscommunication there.
Right.
The other alternative facilities are all occupied at the times that are required. So Diaz has already investigated that, and neither the Kelly Drive facility, the Vonnie Grimes gym, nor, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry. What is the other facility? I guess Vonnie Grimes gym and the Yorktown Center. Huh? Well, no, because that's leased out. There are only 3 facilities, so the city doesn't really have any place to go. I'm very open to and intend to speak with the superintendent of the school district at our next meeting to see if there's any opportunity for a school building or something like that. But the city really only has 3 facilities, and there are already classes going on in those other buildings.
Okay. So it would have been, because I'm waiting to hear from somebody from the city. And like I say, that's been since last week, so nobody has contacted me on if and buts or this way or that way.
Well, I spoke with Diaz right after we talked on the phone. He said that he had talked with you and that he was looking, but, I mean, the information that I'm sharing with you now about our facilities has come from the person that does our recreation facilities, Diaz Woodard. And so we have nothing right now that fits your time schedule.
Okay, so he said he talked to me?
Yes. Responded. He did not respond?
No, sir.
What's your time schedule?
The time for my class is normally from around 4 to 7 in the 3-hour window. So basically, when I get there around 4 and students starts coming in, we stretch. And then classes officially start at 5 and they last for like 2.5 hours. And that's been going on for over 30 years that way.
And
How many students do you have?
Right now is not that many. I would say close to 10.
You know,
At one time we had 30 in Prince Street Center.
and that's 4 days a week, correct?
That's 4 days a week.
That's part of the difficulty.
do you have any type of budget? Or
We're
was the
a
building
free
given to you?
class. We don't charge.
And the building was given to you for free?
Yes. When the city made a union with my instructor, he started out with the Pine Street Center. He was in the Pine Street Center for a couple of years. Then they moved him up to the Girls Y. He was in the Girls Y for a couple of years. Then that's when they moved to the Vonnie Grimes gym. We was in the Vonnie Grimes gym way back in the 90s. No, I'm sorry. Late 80s. And then the city came to my instructor and says, we got these other buildings around the city. And if you have the black belts to put in these buildings, we can have the martial arts program all out through York. So that's what he did. So the last building was my building over Prince Street Center. That kept on going from that point on. So this was something that the city made with my instructor, that they would give us the building and we'd be on our own. We don't charge any students. They don't pay any money. And what the city gives us is the building.
How much space do you need?
Hard to define. Maybe half of this room, maybe.
Is the Wellington Street Center an option, Mayor?
We don't own the Wellington Center, and that is a very small building. If it's that,
It's smaller than half of this room, but you know, if we're talking about engaging young people in Taekwondo, we've got to figure out ways where we can try to support endeavors such as this. You know, we're hearing all the bad news about homicides and all that, and then this young man comes up in front of us and he's just looking for a space. The Princess Street is not an option, obviously. You can't be in there because the building is closed. But why can't we try to...
The avenue that I'm looking at right now is to determine if the Sylvia Newcomb Center could be usable, even though right now it is shut down. If there would be an opportunity, that's what I've been looking into for the last week, is to determine...
Pine Street Center?
Yeah,
Is that what
Pine
you
Street
call it?
Center,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so that actually, with the approval of council, we are hoping to move forward with a new facility for the community at the Sylvia Newcomb Center.
But that would take a while to...
That will take a while. So if we were to do such a thing, it would be temporary now, and then construction, there would be a period of construction where you couldn't be in there, and then there might be an opportunity after that. That's the one thing that the city, that I've been looking at to see if there's a way that we can accommodate you. Otherwise, we're talking about going outside of city buildings. You mentioned the Ys. Have you had any discussion with the YMCA or the YWCA?
They have their own martial arts program in there now,
Okay.
so they wouldn't want us in there.
The YW or the YM?
The YM.
Okay, so without
sorry.
this going on and on and on, there seems to be some discussion that needs to be had, even if there's a possibility to work out different times. May not be the same times that you have, but the administration has this is on the record as well. So I don't mind. I mean, I drive past the Princess Street Center all the time. So I don't mind stopping by just to check in to see how things are going for you as you clear out the building. But regardless if it's 10 students or 30 students, those are 10 kids that are off the streets. And so we have to be able to see if there's some type of availability with programs that go on. I know a lot of times programs last for a certain amount of time in some of the buildings and some don't. But one thing I know for sure is that you have been there serving our kids for almost 40 years for free. So we can follow up with administration as well. We thank you and we thank all those associated with your program for all the commitment in your community. And we definitely shall follow up.
Okay, I appreciate anything and everything that you're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good evening. Do we have anyone else for public comment? For non-agenda items only? Ms. Minaya? Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome.
Hey, good evening. Buenas noches a todos. My name is Dolores Minaya. I reside on 493 Madison Avenue. And I'm here tonight with a concern about how rent is being increased in the city, and it's increasing a lot of situation, a lot of people being without house because they can't afford to pay the rents that the new landlord are setting up. It's being, the job that I do, I receive so many phone calls every single day. The same situation is becoming a concern. So that's why I'm here tonight, to see. I don't know what the city can do. The landlord, right? They own the house, but it has to be something, because it's sad knowing that this family have been in this house for maybe 10 years. Somebody else come and get a house and said, you pay $600. If you don't pay me $1,100, then you have to move. And it's hard. And it's hard even to find another house. And that is my concern. I would like to see if, as a community, we can do something. Another concern that I have is there's a lot of complaint about getting in touch with the city for any situation, like, for example, people calling for services. They said no answer in the phone call. Some people can come to the building, so they try to communicate through the phone. So if that can be improved, that will be something that the community will appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment for non-agenda items?
Sure, just Michael Walker. I just want to follow up. I actually was watching it on the phone and heard this conversation about the Princess Street Center. Maybe about a month or so ago, we were just talking about purchasing dense ply for $5 million. And there was an extreme focus on that. I just heard the mayor speak about a $400,000 assessment that's now $1 million. As Walker's part of the family, we grew up across the street from the Princess Street Center. That place is a foundational place for our community. I am just wondering how we can focus so much on a purchasing of a dense ply, but not at $5 million, but not be able to deal with community centers that are literally helping people today. And I would just ask the administration and the city to maybe prioritize the community first and listen to the people. There's no way that this gentleman, who has been doing programs before I was, well, maybe a couple years after I was born, should be having this conversation, but he's been a stalwart. My father knew him. We know this man, we know what he does for the community. And the fact of the matter is that these kids were in that community center not knowing that it was condemned. That's a problem. So in this context, I'm just asking, where are the priorities? And it was important enough for me to get in my car to come here to ask that question. Where are the priorities? There's been a focus on dense ply, but this is something that's part of our history. And I just want to kind of make that consideration, because I think it needed to be forcefully made. Thank you.
Madam President, would you care for a response, or shall I wait to the end?
You can wait till the end.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other public comment for non-agenda items?
Manuel Gomez, and you know I have to do it, so buenas noches once more. I just want to agree with the previous speakers. There's very much a housing crisis. It has to be called a housing crisis at this point, if we're not aware yet, and I don't want to belabor the point at this time. Something definitely needs to be done. I'm not sure what type of intervention is most appropriate, but it's bad. It's bad because we hear it on all fronts. In terms of accessing or being able to get in touch with city leadership, anecdotally, in my experience, I've given up. I've given up. And you might say, well, he should know who to speak to. Somewhat. I've tried some of the new tools we have with City Grows, whatever it's called now, because I've given up on it. I've given up. The response that I got, I said, this has to be facetious. Somebody's being, I don't know what's going on here. I just literally pulled back. It's been at least over a year since I've tried anything with it. I'm talking about street lamps being off or other infrastructure issues, which is a segue into how I view these community centers at this point. If we have an overall holistic approach to reducing crime and enhancing the environment of the city, in different ways, one of those elements has to be that we must maintain what's, for the most part, sounds to me like an institution. This is an institution that should be viewed almost as infrastructure in the city. You have to view it that way, somehow. I'm not sure how some things are falling by the wayside, almost cascading. It's almost a cascading effect in the way that we're losing these community centers. We seem to not be keeping up. I want to see something be done at some level, and I do have to echo at least some of that sentiment where we can look at, I guess we can call it that shiny object and say, hey, here's a potential purchase or some sort of investment. We're sort of overlooking the investments that we already have and have borne fruit very clearly. I think that something should be done in terms of reminding ourselves of what the priorities should be.
Thank you. Any other public comment for non-agenda items only?
There was one additional issue, just to get clarity, maybe we could ask the administration, when the street cleaning situation, there was a debate, or there were some issues around a memo that was, or a bulletin that was sent out by the city that street cleaning ended on November 12th, but there were people who ended up getting tickets on November 14th. So we just need clarity, because I believe several people have called and have not gotten a response from the administration specifically on what is going on here. But there are several people, and I think there are people who are upset because they're they're following, and they've never gotten tickets before because they've been very responsible, but ended up getting tickets this week because there was a mishap or something, communication with the city. So just to bring that to your attention.
Madam President, if I may.
Thank you.
I would like to respond to that so I can clarify that for everybody. If this, I will look into this. This is the first I'm hearing about it. And if what you say is true, then all tickets after November 12th will be voided. But I do have to verify everything you said.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we're going to move on to our legislative meeting. It is 6:26, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Dennis. Here. Buckingham. Here. Rivera.
Here.
Washington.
Here.
Walker.
Here. And if you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, we will take action on previous meeting minutes from November 1st, 2022. Council, are there any changes that need to be made to those minutes?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor of approving, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those meeting minutes are approved. No proclamations or awards or announcements. Our next legislative meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, December 6, 2022 at 6 p.m. in council chambers. Agenda items are due by 12 noon on November 30th. Our next committee meeting is scheduled for November 30th at 6 p.m. and agenda items are due by 12 noon on November 23rd. No status of prior committee referrals. So we will move on to our legislative agenda. Up first, we have final passage of bill and resolutions, starting with final passage of bill number 58.
So introduced. That's supposed to be moved for final passage. Excuse me. Move for final passage.
Is there a second?
Second.
And that is a bill amending the budget for the Human Relations Commission in the amount of $1,500 for the Holiday Diversity Luncheon.
Any questions or comments from council?
No.
Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Dennis.
Yes.
Buckingham.
Yes.
Rivera.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes. That is so ordered. Moving on to final passage of bill number 59.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
And that is a bill, a bill amending the budget for the Bureau of Planning and Zoning for an agreement with C.S. Davison using ARPA funds in the amount of $40,000 for services relating to the comp plan.
Any questions or comments from council?
No.
Any questions or comments from the public? Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Dennis.
Yes.
Buckingham.
Yes.
Rivera.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes. That is so ordered. Moving on to final passage of bill number 60.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
And that is a bill amending the budget for the Bureau of Permits from ARPA funding to purchase an electronic plan review table, two inspectors, and a vehicle.
Any questions or comments from council?
None.
Any questions or comments from the public? Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Dennis?
Yes.
Buckingham?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes. That is so ordered. Moving on to introductions of bills, we have introduction of bill number 61.
That would be you, Betsy.
So introduced.
And that's bill number 61, adopting the 2023 City of York budget.
That is an introduction, so we'll sit until our next legislative meeting. Moving on to introduction of bill number 62.
So introduced.
That's bill number 62, introduced by Betsy Buckingham, a bill fixing the 2023 tax rate for the City of York.
And the same as an introduction. Moving on to items for consideration of consent agenda. Is there a motion to proceed with a consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Items for consideration are items 6 through 10. Council, can you please review those items? And if there are any items you would like to pull, please share them with us. Any items that council would like to pull?
I would like to pull item number 9.
Any other items? Is there a motion to accept items 6, item 7, items 8, and items 10?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments for items 6, 7, 8, and 10 from council?
No.
Any questions or comments from the public for items 6, 7, 8, and 10? Hearing none, all in favor of approving those items, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those items are approved, and Councilwoman Washington pulled item 9.
So introduced.
Resolution number 124, is there a motion to introduce by short title?
I make a motion to introduce by short title.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, yes?
Yes.
Opposed, no. A resolution declaring November 14th through the 18th as Pennsylvania's Education for Children and Youth Experiencing Homelessness Awareness Week, and Friday, November 18th as Red Shirt Day in the City of York.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments from council?
I do have a comment about I just would like to encourage our community to participate in Red Shirt Day on Friday, November the 18th. This is a day for us to raise awareness about our youth experiencing homelessness in our community. And as we wear red shirts, I also want to encourage us to take the time to learn about the important programs within our community that meet the needs of our youth that are experiencing homelessness. One of the programs is the Pennsylvania Education for Children and Youth Experiencing Homelessness, as well as Covenant House, and as well as Cornerstone Youth Home. And there may be several others, but I encourage us and implore us to keep our eyes open and be aware, and if we do notice any youth in our community that are experiencing homelessness, these are organizations that are very trustworthy in our community that truly do assist those youth that are experiencing homelessness. And unfortunately, there's several. I would love to see a day when there's none in our community, but there are. So I just want to encourage our community, our organizations, our businesses. Let's raise some awareness for this important issue in our community on Friday, and let's wear our red shirts. Thank you.
And thank you, Councilwoman Washington, for, I believe every year you bring forth this resolution, and it just ties into what Mrs. Minaya was talking about earlier as well. I think we are very much so aware of inflation and the increasing rents and cost to purchase properties, not only here in the city, but throughout, and the struggles that a lot, especially within our community, are dealing with based on their limited income. So I know council members have been approached just to see if there's anything legislatively that can be done. So we are in the beginning stages of looking into that. This was something that Ms. Barb Beatty, years ago before she passed away, brought up as a occurring situation on the East End with landlords charging outrageous amounts of rents. So I remember looking into it then, but was told there really wasn't too much that we could do about it. But it still hasn't went away. So we're going to continue to look to see if there's anything that we can do or work with community organizations to help emphasize or help support, especially now. It's needed more than ever. So thank you again. Any questions or comments from the public regarding this resolution? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Dennis?
Yes.
Buckingham?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes, that is so ordered. No requests for future meetings. Council, is there any comment?
I do have a comment. And I'm not sure who to address this to be honest with you. Mayor, I'll address it to you. There's no one else from the administration here or known anyway. I know there is a concern that the RDA has moved forward with an LOI for the purchase of dense supply. It's my understanding. And I was just concerned about the impact it would have. I think the city pays for the insurance on the RDA-owned properties, and I was just curious if that had been taken into consideration, if we would be obligated for that or not.
I'll certainly look into it, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor.
Are we responsible for insurance?
We're going to have to look into it. This is the first I'm hearing of that.
This is the first that you're hearing about the RDA putting in the LOI for?
No, about
working with?
no, about insurance, about the city's insurance covering RDA properties. It's never come up before.
Yeah, this was brought to my attention last week in regards to the RDA working with the entity to underwrite the cost for dense supply. So I am concerned about what this might look for the city in the future, even though it's stated that there are no costs associated for the city. But I find that hard to believe, just with all the other properties that are owned by the RDA and the responsibility, especially with Belinda Nace's position in the time that's dedicated to the RDA. So I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be more questions. I'm aware that the LOI is the same process that would have occurred if the LOI was approved through council. But I think that there's a lot of things associated with it that, especially related to the city and what it might cost taxpayers in the future associated with it, or the city in general. So I guess we'll wait to hear from you.
Yeah, the little I know, because it is an RDA transaction, not a City of York transaction, but I've been told carrying costs and other additional things would be covered within the partnership that is being created, and that it wouldn't come back on the City of York. But I will certainly follow up and make sure that that is the case.
Thank you. I think we were told that in our meeting as well, that there wouldn't be any cost. But at the same time, there were some good points that were brought up in the meeting where there was a lot of gray And it just seems like there is going to be some type of expense to the city. But we shall see. I mean, I guess the LOI was already submitted, so I guess we'll hear back in about 30 days or so. I think Mike Black said that they would like to have this done by the end of the year. Any other questions or comments from council? Administration comment?
Yeah, I'd like to first start off by explaining, Mr. Walker, what I've learned is that at the beginning of the year, Public Works sent out a notice that street cleaning would end on November 12th. However, that was not the understanding of the Parking Bureau. And even prior to your comments, they'd already been working on eliminating all tickets given after November 12th. So if you received a street cleaning ticket after November 12th, you don't have to worry about it. We're going to take care of it. If you received anything, or if you receive anything further, I do want to say that, and I'm going to jump to the ability to reach the city. The 2221 number goes directly to the desk out here in the front, and if our great person Jean isn't answering it, it goes directly to my office, and one of the people at the office usually gets those calls. So I'm going to follow up and look into that. The City Grows portal was something that was set up and designed by 2 employees that are no longer here, and we are trying to work with that as much as we can, but unfortunately with turnover, that's where you end up. The people that knew what was going on, the planner and former chief of staff, are no longer with us. So we are working as best we can with the City Grows team to make sure that is all being responded to. And I do want to apologize if people have been getting no response, or I'm not sure, Manuel, we can talk about what kind of response you received, because it sounds like you received some response, but it wasn't a satisfactory response. There's also, when it comes to lights being out, things like that, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, there is on the website a number specifically for street lights being out, because those, in most cases, we have to contact Med Ed and get them to deal with that. So, in short, I'm going to be looking more into it, because as soon as I came into office, we did a survey of how to improve communications, and it's very disturbing to me to hear that communications are either less than what they were, or certainly less than optimum. So we will get right on that.
Excuse me, Mayor, I
Yes.
have one thing to add about the street lights, because it happened in my neighborhood as well.
Yeah.
That might be helpful, is each Med Ed pole has a number on it, on a metal
Right.
plate. And we were told to call Med Ed with that number. And that was helpful. They did come and repair it.
Well, the number to call, actually, thank you, Dave Rudolph, who is ever attentive. Dave Rudolph just sent me the number, and it is 717-845-9351. And to my knowledge, and Dave, if you're still listening, please text me and confirm this. But to my knowledge, it's supposed to come through the city.
Oh, is it?
So,
we
yeah,
had
but we do need it, we do need that poll number provided to us.
Okay,
So
and I might
that's
have misunderstood
absolutely
that.
correct.
Yep.
There's a number on the poll. Please
on the
call
poll.
us.
Yeah.
Please call that number. I'll repeat it here. 845-9351 is the specific number for street lamps. Yes?
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Dave Rudolph says, yes, it lets us track it then. So it helps us track what's going on in the city. So call us. We'll deal with communicating with Med Ed. Okay. Let me get back to also Mr. Walker's comments. And again, so it's funny because we're in a completely different world this year than we were for the last 10 years at least, if not more, if not 20 years, where the city has been battling expenses, raising taxes, trying to figure out what we could cut, dealing with the fact that in the early 2000s, the federal money that kept the recreation facilities open was virtually all cut. We went from $5.6 million, or $5.2 or $5.4 million per year of community development block grant money down to about $1.4. So we lost $4 million, we lost 80% almost of our funding, which was the funding that kept those community centers open. The Jefferson Center, the Princess Street Center, Rotary Cranich, Pine Street, all of those. So that's really when all that happened. I will say that I am committed to getting community centers open. That's why I invested in the Championship Community Center. So we had city dollars that went into that, not a lot, but we got that open on West King Street, and then that was sold to Lincoln Charter School. That was very unfortunate. We thought that was going to be a solid new center. Didn't require all of the maintenance upgrades. So that's the whole vision over there, was we have something on King Street. Now let's put Princess Street into a position to return to the community without the city taxpayers having to pay all of the expenses to upgrade. So that's where that was. And I'd be happy to, and I continue conversations. I had a conversation within the last 2 weeks with an organization on whether or not they wanted to fund the improvements in exchange for a long-term lease and provide the space, that same space, once it's upgraded, back to Hopkins, as well as the Salem Square Community Association, as well as our community ecosystem coordinator, Erica, who's been working diligently out in that area. So that's where the discussions have been on that. If council wants to talk about using ARPA money to bring that back, I just want to say that we can spend that money, but improvements have been made, very expensive improvements. A new heating system was put in there not too long ago. That has been a very expensive building to maintain, which is one of the reasons why we looked at it to see if we could get a community partnership working to improve and maintain that building. The choices between Densply and maintaining that building, I want to clarify, and this has been said from the beginning, the purpose of purchasing Densply was to control the development that would occur on that 17 acres. It was fully the intent of the administration essentially to flip Densply, to sell it back to the public, recover the money invested, and put that money back into the fund to pay the long-term obligations of pension and health care. So unlike the Princess Street Center, where we would be putting money in and having to continue to put money in, the thought on Densply was purchase it, and then, like, I've used this example before. If you purchase a pie for $6, you can sell each slice for $2 and actually make money off of the pie. And that's how we were looking at the Densply lot. So for us, there was no net loss on that purchase. On this, from the financial side, there is a net loss. If the council and the administration wants to talk about whether or not that net loss and the long-term expenses are worth it to the community, we can do that. But right now, the focus was on not returning that particular center, but creating a larger center with a full-size gym over at the Sylvia Newcomb Center, at the former Pine Street Center. So that's where the vision has been in the administration, to increase recreational opportunities. But the timing, the malfunctioning of the heating systems, the things that occurred earlier on this year that caused the Princess Street Center to be condemned, we did not account for that. But once that was happening, we couldn't in good conscience allow people to continue to be in there. So again, our focus is on the Sylvia Newcomb Center, and with the assistance of council, we have received a RACP grant for $1.5 million to improve the Sylvia Newcomb Center, and we hope that council would approve, I believe it's in the budget, money to match that from the ARPA money, and we will have a very nice community center over in that neighborhood that doesn't necessarily help us over where I live, a block and a half away from the Princess Street Center. So we'll have to look into that more. But And I just wanted to get back to Mr. Gomez. We have been in a position of, again, prior to ARPA, prior to the sale of the wastewater treatment plant, which just closed this year, we have been making infrastructure choices. You know, what is it that we maintain? This building needs $1 million roof. The police station needs a roof. All these things need maintained all at once, and we had a limited budget. So we were making infrastructure choices, not in an effort to reduce the facilities available to the community, but because you just had to do certain things. That's where the idea came from of how can we use the value of the building to get somebody else to invest in the building instead of the taxpayers paying all those costs, and then having the building not only for the people that would join in the partnership, but also for the people of the community. And every organization, whether it's the movement or which they had an option and were not able to complete that option, or whether it's any of these other individuals or groups, I should say, that I've been speaking with, everyone I've said that this has got to be, you can use it, you pay for the improvements, you can use it, but it's got to be a community center. So one way or the other, it is our goal to have the Princess Street Center back as a community center. And I do apologize, and if I misspoke, since the very beginning of my administration, people talked about selling that building, but that has not been my intent since the very first discussions back in 2018 when people were saying, hey, let's put some apartments in there. One last thing I want to say, and that's about the housing crisis. One of the main points of purchasing Dentsply was to control having affordable housing put in there, because this is a supply and a demand issue, and it's not a York City issue. The rates of housing are going through the roof all over the country, and the expenses of maintaining these properties, if you've tried to build anything recently or tried to even do kitchen improvements or anything else, you know that the cost of lumber, the cost of everything has gone through the roof. So the way to combat it is to try to increase the supply. And the City of York has received $1.9 million in additional funds. We have talked with council members about that. Those funds are specifically for either new construction of affordable housing, particularly for homeless or for those fleeing domestic violence. Those are the categories for that affordable housing money. ARPA money can be used a lot more liberally for affordable housing, and President Walker and I have been having those discussions about how we're going to move forward with the council's thoughts on spending some of this money on affordable housing. Right now, we are trying to negotiate with the county, who also received ARPA money specific to housing, and we're trying to join forces and see if we can multiply the value of the money we got, because some of the stuff we're looking at, even if we spent every penny of the $1.9 million, you're talking 10 units. You know, you're talking 10 units, while it's great, doesn't change a crisis. So we're talking about, and Director Watson is here, and she is looking at incentive programs to see if we can incentivize some more investment. I am hoping that not only the City of York takes on this problem, but also all the municipalities around us, because this is not a City of York problem. There is no boundary in the housing crisis. They're having similar problems throughout all of the urban and suburban townships and boroughs that we have. So I hope that everybody takes this on, and we will do what we can to increase the supply of housing. And it sounds like council, while both President Walker and I have both looked into what we could do about price control, there hasn't been a lot that looked like it would pass the legal tests. So Yeah, I think I covered everything. Am I missing, did I miss anything? Okay, thank you for the time to go through that. I really appreciate it. It is one of our top priorities.
Yes, no problem. Since you mentioned the RACP for Sylvia Newcomb, I asked last week Blenda if that RACP was submitted under the RDA or the city, and he said it was submitted under the RDA.
That should not be correct.
That's what he said.
I will look into that. So the way it works and why we work hand in hand with the RDA on these things, well, I don't know about that for the Sylvia Newcomb Center. Oh, I know why. I know, okay, I know why. It has to do with the Health Bureau going over there. So I'd be happy to go through that. And I'll talk to Blanda first to make sure. I was not aware that it specifically went through the RDA. I do know that we need to create an agreement where the Sylvia Newcomb Center goes into the hands of the RDA with caveats about how it will be used, and if it ever does not fulfill the use that the city wants, the building will be returned to the city of York. But those are all details of how to fund the project, and I'd be happy to follow up.
Thank you all. This meeting is adjourned.